Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and you can catch me on X or Twitter at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show is always free, but you can support me on there if you want to. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie. Actually, it's a great time to join because right now I've paused billing, but I'm still giving out some recaps. I will be talking about movies that I've seen throughout the week and things like that, so check that out. But I have a returning guest on the podcast today. I have Cody. Say hi, Cody.
Hello, and yes, thank you, Lisa. I love being on the show and love being here. Love chatting with you about movies.
Yes, thank you, and happy birthday.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, it's a big one for last month. I turned the big 4-0.
Welcome to the club. I don't know if it's an exciting club to be a part of, but it is a milestone. So, yeah, happy birthday.
Anytime I make a noise or complain about something aching, my wife teases me and says, that's just you being in your 40s now. I was like, oh, okay.
Pretty much. That's how it is. Well, Cody, you've been on several times, and I know you have a podcast as well, and I feel like this pick that you have today is maybe inspired by some of the, what do you call it, the anthologies that you have touched on with different directors, but if you want to talk a little bit about that podcast, about yourself, before we dive into that, go ahead.
Oh, sure. We have like a Facebook channel called Video Store Rejects, and I do a little offshoot of that, which basically is director centric. Right now, it's been quite a sojourn. We've been doing the works of David Lynch, and I guess it's because we've been discussing Twin Peaks, the TV series, but it's kind of hard to like ignore that with his work and just do the other 9 movies he directed. If you don't, because he did direct a Twin Peaks movie, so if you're going to cover that movie, you kind of have to cover the TV show. So right now we're talking about The Return, and then yes.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish your thought. Sorry.
I was going to say, and then, of course, the other one's kind of like a monthly movie club where we pick a topic or discussion and we're just chatting about it. Like, we recently did a birthday pick for me and Chris, and we talked about Spider-Man 2 and Disney's The Rocketeer.
Nice. So you did like a double feature.
Yeah, because his birthday's like a day before mine, I think.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah. So we did a double, and it was actually kind of similarly on theme. Usually we both have wildly different choices, but this one kind of was more thematic.
Nice. So Cody, what my guest, if this is your first time ever listening to the episode, my guest always picks a movie. We talk about the movie that they love. We talk about it in the intro. So Cody, what movie did you choose to talk about today?
Well, yeah, I think it's funny that you said this is kind of on point, and this is a director I've yet to cover on my show, which I would love to cover him at some point, but I feel like, yeah, for me, I picked David Fincher's Zodiac, and to me, I think this is his masterpiece. Now, I know a lot of people might say it's The Social Network. That's the movie of the decade it came out, one of the best films of the 21st century. millennial coded. Some people might say Fight Club. Some people might say Seven. There's people who would say Gone Girl. None of those choices are wrong. I mean, those are all fantastic films. That's the thing about him as a director. There's very few of his movies, like even his weaker films, I wouldn't say are bad and boring. Uh, but to me, I think this defines him of what he is as a director, because
Mm-hmm.
this movie is about obsession and it's meticulous and it's about people like researching and trying to find the clues, and I feel like that's who he is as a director. And this is a little bit personal for him because he was growing up around the San Francisco area when this was happening in real life.
So wild. I think that you're spot on with Zodiac being considered the pinnacle of David Fincher's work. And when you think of some of his best films like Seven, um, and you know, more recently Mindhunters, you know, he does kind of continue going back to this well a lot. And what was that movie he made with Fassbender too?
The Killer,
The Killer, yeah. I
which
didn't love that one as much, if I'm honest, but um, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I was gonna say that one is very much in vein of his style, but I feel like he's also like kind of making fun of himself in that movie
Oh,
about
okay.
like all of Fassbender's rules about like, oh, you have to be on point, no emotion. I wait till my pulse is at 60 beats a minute. But I mean, the movie's about a guy who says he has no emotion, but he listens to like the most emotional band ever on his playlist, you know, and
Yeah.
it ends up being like a whole revenge plot of like when the hit goes wrong and everything. So yeah, I feel like it's very much David Fincher, but at the same time, he's like, yeah, I'm making fun of myself and kind of what people expect from a David Fincher movie.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just call myself out. I got confused and forgot that Memento was Christopher Nolan, but I think that's because Christopher Nolan and David Fincher, I mean, there's some similarities in their style when it comes to like the emotion, the coldness, the meticulousness of what they do. But yeah, you know, I have to admit, Cody, the first time I saw this movie, I mean, now film bros are really going to come after me, but I kind of had to see it again. Like, I think the first time I didn't totally understand why it was so beloved, and it took like a rewatch for me to really get into it.
Well, I mean, I think this is that kind of movie, right? I think I remember the first time I saw it in theaters, I was like, well, of course it's really well made and like it's interesting, but I was like, it's kind of long. And like, I think I loved it more and more like with each rewatch. And then it just kind of became my favorite Fincher movie because the more I've watched his movies, I'm like, no, this is exactly the like this just sums up him as a director like perfectly.
It also weirdly, I guess just aesthetically, I feel like he must have been inspired by this movie, but it also kind of reminds me of another movie that I covered on the podcast, Prisoners, which was Denis Villeneuve. There is something aesthetically similar, and even some scenes that feel similar to this film to me. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I've seen Prisoners. I love Prisoners, and yes, Villeneuve, Nolan, and Fincher all kind of have that meticulous, and you could say maybe there's not always a lot of emotion in their movies.
Yeah,
I guess the big difference between Nolan and Fincher is Nolan is a hardcore advocate for shooting everything on film, and
that's
Fincher
true.
Fincher loves digital, and Fincher probably is one of the better filmmakers that makes digital look good.
Agreed, agreed. And I think sometimes when filmmakers have a very distinct like color palette and mood and look to their movies, they can sometimes come across as, I mean, I guess the most extreme example would be Wes Anderson, right? Where it's so highly stylized that it actually is kind of polarizing. It's like some people hate that, some people really love it. I feel like Fincher kind of toes the line of like not going over into that highly stylized, but it's still very much his world, very much his palette. Like you could still tell it's a film done by him, but it's like a little more muted, I guess, when you compare him to some of those other directors.
Yeah, I mean, like, even when his stuff is shot in daylight, it's like it feels dark, right? Like
Hmm.
just the feeling is dark and it's muted colors. And my wife and I were just having a discussion about like various directors and like a lot of different directors, people like saying, "Oh, well, I didn't like that movie," and it's like, why didn't you like that movie? Like, what did you expect? And it's like, I think some directors like Wes Anderson when they when people realize it's not a gimmick, it's just them. They're like, okay, the novelty of this is worn off. I don't care anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of a similar thing with Anderson and Shyamalan. It's like, okay, I get it. That's your thing, but I'm done with you.
Yeah, that does tend to happen. So with Zodiac, this came out I think in 2007. Yeah.
Yeah, big year for
Yeah.
movies. This is the big No Country, There Will Be Blood year.
I love those movies.
I feel like this movie, even though it was critically acclaimed, like the critics love this movie, it was not a huge hit at the box
Mm-mm.
office. And, it was released in March, so it kind of got largely ignored by the awards categories, which I feel like is unjustified. I feel like this should have gotten more attention from people because like it's just expertly made and expertly crafted, and like he's homaging like some of the great films of the 70s. Like he makes it look like it's a 70s movie. Like it gets to and he gets to with the three kind of main characters that are the obsessive of this case. He kind of gets to make a journalist investigative movie and a cop procedural movie. And then just Jake Gyllenhaal being all whacked out and crazy, but feeling like he's on a mission.
Yeah, this is pre Nightcrawler, pre Prisoners. Definitely connection with Jake Gyllenhaal there. But yeah, and definitely a template almost for when Mindhunter came out. Because that show is also a period piece. It's also, I think, in the 70s, or maybe the 80s. I can't recall, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think what's hard about this movie, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say, is there's no resolution. I think that
Yeah.
is a tough sell for any movie because for you to be really invested in this mystery and for there not to be a resolution is kind of hard to pull off, but and probably not a crowd pleaser. But even though people know what this is about, I'm still going to read a quick synopsis of the film in case you haven't heard of it and maybe you think things like this are too scary and so you just want to know what it's about. I'll read a quick synopsis from Wikipedia, but here I go. In the late 1960s and 1970s, fear grips the city of San Francisco as a serial killer called Zodiac stalks its residents. Investigators and reporters become obsessed with learning the killer's identity and bringing him to justice. Meanwhile, Zodiac claims victim after victim and taunts the authorities with cryptic messages, ciphers, and menacing phone calls.
Yes, and of course there are cold cases that predate this, like Jack the Ripper and a lot of
Sure.
other things. But I feel like the Zodiac case is kind of where all these true crime podcasts are
Mm-hmm.
birthed from, right? I feel like because I don't know if your parents watched America's Most Wanted on Saturday
Oh,
night,
yeah. Yeah.
but my parents did, and they did a special, I think, back in the 90s about the Zodiac case and did like how they would do like retelling of the case, like the crimes,
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like
I
that.
also watched like Unsolved Mysteries. Totally obsessed with what's his name, Richard Stack,
Robert
whatever,
Stack,
Robert
yeah.
Stack. Yeah, I you know, I think that's why so many of us are so into true crime now. Like you said, there are these cases that happened when we were younger, and I think I did hear a lot about the Zodiac killer. You know, there's like the John Benet Ramsey case, which was when I was a kid. You know, there was just a lot of stuff, or you know, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, if you grew up in any of those decades, there were just a lot of these high profile cases. And, but what I think is unique about this movie is it's very different from, you know, his film Seven,
Oh
where
yeah.
I don't want to say it's glorifying the killer, but I mean, it comes close, right? Like that one really makes him out to be a genius, whereas this, I feel like, is way more grounded in reality. You know, the Zodiac killer is sure smart. He's coming up with codes and things like that, but they don't make it seem like, oh my gosh, he is a super genius. You know, it's just a mystery, but it's probably one of the first big cases that had like these secret messages. I think there were a couple other people like the BTK and a couple others that had something along those lines, but not quite this level of obsessive detail.
Yeah, I think this was kind of one of the first of that kind of demeanor. But like you said, this does definitely does not glorify, because this is kind of a docudrama
Right.
in a lot of ways, even though, we don't really spend much time, because of course we never know who the Zodiac killer actually was. So we're spending time with these three different men who are key players in this investigation. But like, there's a scene with Robert Downey Jr. and Jake Gyllenhaal where Robert Downey Jr.'s character Paul Avery's like, the guy's full of shit. Like, he's taking credit for stuff he read in the paper. Like,
Yeah.
what do we know is actual fact that crimes he committed?
Yeah, and I think when you think of pre DNA and a lot of the other tools that we have now, even just the internet, it's just a different world that they live in, and I'm sure a lot more frustrating. In a lot of cases, when you watch older stuff, like maybe about other killers like, you know, Ted Bundy or other people like that, I'm usually kind of frustrated because I'm like, I feel like over time we glorify them so much, but really a lot of it was because you weren't listening to people, weren't listening to victims, weren't listening to clues and concern and reports. And so, but in this case, I think it's pretty different because people are obsessed with finding this guy and they still don't find him. So it is a unique, like, mystery that kind of goes on maybe till this day, depending on what you believe.
Well, yeah, we have so many
Yeah,
conspiracy theories. Like, people thought the Unabomber was the
right.
Zodiac, and
Yeah,
So,
lots of different theories. I had a couple of quick facts I wanted to share too, just about the film, and then we can kind of delve into like the director and the actors. But the first one was that David Fincher, screenwriter James Vanderbilt, and producer Bradley J. Fisher spent 18 months conducting research into the Zodiac murders. They interviewed witnesses, family members, suspects, retired and active investigators, and the only two surviving victims, and the mayors of San Francisco and Vallejo. So, wow.
I think it shows. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I am a sucker for a movie that deals with like investigations like this. Like, I love
same.
journalist investigation. I'm like, yeah. So when it gets to like
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal just looking through files and stuff, and they're like going through there, I'm like, all we needed was like some scenes of Gyllenhaal in the library, and I'd be like, yeah, he's in the library doing the
He's looking at
scanner.
microfiche or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the microfilm. Yeah,
I
which
know,
will
I
make
do
it.
too. A lot of movies I like have been called, you know, boring or slow burns or whatever. But that, I agree with you, Cody. Those are some of my favorite films. There's just something about that piece of it. Also, South Korean film director, another favorite director of mine, Bong Joon-ho, has classified David Fincher's film as a masterpiece, writing that there was really nothing to find at fault about it, down to the cinematography, art direction, and action. So there you go, another person who agrees with you.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen it, another similar film, he directed one of his own called Memories of Murder or Memoirs of
Mm,
Murder.
I haven't seen
Uh,
that.
oh, it's very good. It predates Zodiac by about 5 or 6 years, but it's really good.
Interesting. I saw a movie that he made called Mother, which haunted me. It was really, really rough watch, but also kind of a little bit of a mystery. Also, last thing that I had on here was David Fincher wanted to cast Jake Gyllenhaal based on his performance in Donnie Darko, another cult favorite.
That makes sense,
It
and
does.
I think Gyllenhaal actually is the perfect actor for how they want to portray Robert Graysmith in this movie. I don't know how accurate it is to the real Robert Graysmith,
Yeah,
but in
who's credited as one of the writers, I guess because of his book.
right because of the book he wrote, which
Hmm.
is kind of the basis of what this movie's gone from.
Yeah.
But they make comments about him being like a Boy Scout, and they jokes about him going to the library and everything. Like, I think Gyllenhaal has the perfect blend of like aw shucks all American guy, but there's a little bit of crazy in him that
Yeah, there's
like
some darkness to him. Yeah.
like why he gets so obsessed with this case, like more so than even the people who were hired to like be involved. Like,
Yeah. Well, with that, let's talk a little bit. We've talked a little bit about David Fincher already, just kind of organically, but we should go through the cast. And I think, yeah, starting with Jake Gyllenhaal, I agree. He's one of probably my favorite actors because he does tend to take on these really interesting, somewhat darker roles. And like I mentioned, a few of the movies already with Prisoners, Nightcrawler, and there are others, Enemy. There's several that he's been in where he plays kind of like a troubled, obsessive type person. And yeah, yeah, really good.
yeah, I think there's just something about him that works really well, but at the same time, he can also kind of play that innocent kind of, oh, that he's such a nice guy, but like there's something a little more to him. Like, he's not just the boy next door, and that's a hard line to toe because it's kind of hard to be on both of those sides.
Agreed. Not on that side of Boy Scout at all, but still a good actor. Robert Downey Jr. plays Paul Avery.
Again, I think he's incredible in this, and this is kind of on the verge of his renaissance or comeback.
Yeah, yeah.
It's right before he plays Iron Man, and it's after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So
So
it's like
wild.
really in that sweet spot of like reminding you like he always was an incredibly gifted actor. It was just, and he's playing a person who has vice issues and kind of crumbles and destroys his own career because of his vices and I guess his
Yeah.
obsession of not being able to solve the case.
Yeah, and I think just paranoia too,
Well, yeah, because he gets threatened, by the
Mhm.
Zodiac, which Robert Downey Jr. makes the movie funny too. Like, he's also
He
kind of the
does.
comic relief of this movie.
Absolutely. And speaking of, Iron Man or Marvel, we've also got Mark Ruffalo in this one. So we almost
Yes.
have half the Avengers in this movie.
Yeah, all three of the main actors have been in the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah.
Universe, which I guess is such as it is in Hollywood these days. But yeah, that's what I said because David Fincher gets to kind of make two different types of movies here. So he gets to like homage something like All the President's Men, but also he gets to homage like the great cop movies, even though they're like referencing movies that were probably inspired. Like, they make a joke about Ruffalo wearing his guns like Steve McQueen did in Bullet,
Yeah.
and Downey Jr.'s like, no, McQueen stole that from him. And then of course there's that scene where they're screening Dirty Harry for the San Francisco Police Department, and of course Dirty Harry's plot is about them tracking down a serial killer who calls himself Scorpio.
Right. I didn't realize that. I haven't seen that movie in such a long time. And also, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Gosh, I hadn't thought about that. I love that. But yeah, it's a definitely a star-studded cast, and definitely right on the cusp of these actors becoming super, even more famous than they already are. Hard to think about a pre-Marvel world, really. Like, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about how Iron Man came out after this.
Yeah, I mean, we were already in kind of the comic book movie boom, but it wasn't as like how it was about to blow up. And I mean, this movie's filled with amazing character actors. Like,
Yes.
almost, even if you don't know all these actors' names, almost every one of them is someone you've seen in something. You're like, who is
Yeah.
that guy? I know who that guy is.
Yeah, I know Brian Cox obviously had a really big couple of years with Succession. You've got Chloe Savini, who's in the film too. Like, I think you're right, a lot of character actors. And June Diane Raphael, so
Yeah.
I like her.
I mean, Brian Cox's scenes are great. He's amazing in it. Like, as this, I guess, bigwig lawyer that they
Mhm.
get to help, and uh, Chloe Sevigny does a great job of being like a very supportive and loving wife, but at the same time being like, I can't handle this anymore. I've got to go.
Can't blame her. Yeah.
But I mean, she's still helpful, even though she's like, I got to get out. But
Yeah.
I mean, because the guy's got his kids doing like a murder conspiracy board to write his book in a
Very
scene.
dark. Very dark. Are there any specific scenes, now that we've kind of talked a little bit about the actors, about the director, are there any specific scenes that really stand out to you in this movie that you wanted to touch on?
So there's definitely, I'm gonna highlight three scenes that I think are really just tenseful and terrifying. So the first one is where Mark Ruffalo, and of course Anthony Edwards, for you ER fans, plays Mark Ruffalo's partner.
Hmm.
They get a tip about a guy who made some comments that sound similar to the Zodiac's threats. And so they have to they find out where this guy is, and they have to go interview him, and they're interviewing him with the chief of police, Vallejo, because that's where I believe two of the crimes happen. And of course, Vallejo, the guy playing the chief of police from Vallejo, for your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, is Casey Jones, Elias Cortez.
Wow,
But
didn't realize that.
yeah, yeah. But when they meet John Carroll Lynch for the first time, like, that is just one of the most haunting and terrifying things. So whatever you think, if the guy Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac or wasn't the Zodiac, like, it is just terrifying because he is just giving away too much information that is just very creepy and haunting. Like, even if he's not the killer, there's something off about this guy. Of course, what we find out about him, of course, it makes sense, but still, it's just like one of the most tenseful scenes of just people sitting in chairs talking to one another.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, Fincher is really that master of tension. And again, I hate to keep bringing up other works, but like, you see a lot of that kind of intensity in Mindhunters where it's like you borderline can't stand the tension.
And
Really good at
the
building it.
and this movie just shows, if you guys don't know who John Carroll Lynch is, he's an incredible gifted character actor who's been in a lot of things. You probably have seen him in, he was Drew Carey's brother in the Drew Carey show. He had a really
Oh, wow.
amazing episode on The Walking Dead. But what's funny is I just watched Fargo the other night, and talk about
Hmm.
two polar different type of characters that he's playing. Like, because him playing the husband in Fargo, he's like one of the sweetest, most supportive, sensitive people in the world. And here he's playing this role in Zodiac, which is the opposite of what he's doing in Fargo. Just shows you how just incredible his range is as an actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other scene that's really tenseful and really just terrifying is when they actually get the warrant to search his trailer.
Yeah. That part is really eerie. and
And
uncomfortable.
like someone just wearing like shorty shorts. I don't know if I've ever seen someone wear shorty shorts that was more creepy. When he like pulls up in his car and
Yeah.
they arrest him, it's like wow. And then the third terrifying scene is Gyllenhaal gets Robert Graysmith gets a tip about another suspect that was kind of overlooked as a possible Zodiac, and he goes to meet a coworker of him. And this guy's played by the voice of Roger Rabbit. Uh,
Really?
yes, that guy was the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he goes to this guy's house because he's got some information or a film or handwriting by this guy. And like it is the most terrifying thing in the movie because you think something sinister is in that basement.
Yes, that's the part. That's probably one of the scenes that stood out to me the most, that haunts me after watching the movie, just feeling like Jake Gyllenhaal is in tons of danger and that something's going to happen to him. And then nothing does, but you just feel so scared while he's there.
Yeah, and the guy is like just being accommodating and friendly, but like the way the way Fincher films it and everything this guy does, it seems like it's the most sinister thing ever. And he's just like, "Would you like tea? No, it's not a problem. It's just down here. Let me open the door for it."
Yeah,
Like you could film that scene and it wouldn't be creepy at all. But the way Fincher films it, it feels like he's in over his head and something bad's about to happen.
yeah. I think it. You feel like yes, he has this passion, this obsession, but is he really cut out for this kind of work? Like you don't really like at some point you feel like this is just like a nerd, you know, who's too enthralled in this case, and then he suddenly realizes, hey, wait a minute, like this person is a killer that we're after. And I think also for the audience, it occurs to you that it really could be anybody. Like they really don't know who it is. So in theory, it could be this person. And so even though the person feels safe, he's thinking, well, probably the victims, right before something happened, felt really safe, right? I mean, I think for me, a big part of the movie that stands out really is just even the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's intense right away with that death scene with that couple. It feels so nonsensical, so without motive. And that was another really strange part of the Zodiac killer, was that it just felt like there wasn't a profile that he was after. There wasn't really a motive. It was just, I think there's a quote from The Dangerous Game at one point in the movie, but yeah, it's like what is his motivation that makes it so hard to figure out who he is?
Well, yeah, because I think they do a really good job of the recreations of like the reports they got from these crimes because they're very unsettling. But I
Hmm.
think it is interesting that we start the film off with the couple that eventually is going to meet their demise, you know.
Yeah,
And I mean, the picnic scene, that scene is so hard to watch. That might be the
truly.
hardest one to watch. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense because, for people who are obsessed with this kind of stuff and like to watch about profiles and stuff, that usually these type of criminals have a pattern. Their victims have some sort of similarities or something they do, but then Zodiac kills a cab driver, which is totally against the previous two or three reported crimes he's committed, which opens it into more of a cop investigative movie now because before then we're mostly following the San Francisco Chronicle staff.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think another unique part about it is, I said it in the beginning, the 60s and 70s. So, like, this investigation is so incredibly long. I think that does kind of add to feeling like the movie's a little bit long, right? And because it spans a really long period of time.
Yeah, I think a good comparison to this movie, and it's not something Fincher, I don't think, drew inspiration, but because of its length of how long the film is, and about being about obsession and kind of being an unsolvable case to this day is Oliver Stone's JFK.
Mm. Man, I haven't seen that in a hot minute.
But I feel like they're a little bit of similar vibes because it's
Yeah.
about kind of the same thing. You want resolution, but no matter how far and deep you go into the rabbit hole, you're not any more clear of what happened.
Right. I mean, the real author, that this is based on, wrote a whole book and everything. And I think every couple of years they're like, okay, they really found out this time, but it seems kind of unsolvable.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, even when he's trying to write a book, Mark Ruffalo's like, too much time has passed. We've lost evidence. People forget, you know, like, and, the other thing is, all the reports are like, they don't give like distinctive tales of what the guy looked like. He was normal
Mm-hmm.
looking. What does that mean? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting and so you said at the beginning of this that you felt like well, I know you talked about another movie that Fincher did where you felt like he was making fun of himself, but in this movie, what do you think he's saying about himself? Other than having grown up with that mystery, I mean, do you feel like the way that the Zodiac shot the obsession, that there's any crossover with, his filmmaking?
I don't think Fincher's making fun of himself in this movie at all. There is
Yeah.
a bit of comedy in here with like Robert Downey Jr., the
Mm-hmm.
stuff with Brian Cox, the little stuff between Mark Ruffalo and Anthony Edwards with the animal crackers.
Yeah.
Like there's light moments, but I think this is just like I think Fincher just was like, I want to make this. I want to I want this to be like one of the defining things because this is something that's not only like I remember this in the news, but this is a story I can tell because this is in my skill set.
Yeah.
Um, like I think he was the perfect filmmaker to tell this story, and yeah, I mean I can see why some people wouldn't like it, even though you know how it ends. But because I mean, like this is not Quentin Tarantino's Zodiac, okay?
Right.
Like which is funny because there's going to be parallel crosses because you mentioned Mindhunter, the actor who played Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Mm.
played Charles Manson in season 2 of Mindhunter,
Yeah.
and then now Fincher is directing a loosely based sequel, which I guess it's not technically a sequel, but has Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So they're
Interesting. I didn't realize that. I heard that the actor that plays Manson has said in interviews that he wants to stop being him. Like he's like, please stop casting me as Charles Manson. I don't enjoy this. So, but he may be called upon again. It sounds like.
it could happen, but I
Yeah.
mean, like, I think there's some actor who's played Hitler a bunch of times too. So like, yeah, you're like, can I stop being cast as like horrible people in history?
Yeah. Um, but when you were talking about, he knows this subject matter really well and he's the right person to tell it. One thing that I really like about this movie and what he chose to include is he was really careful to include, I think it's multiple instances, right, with violence, but where people like survived, where someone was able to talk about some of the details and present that. And I felt like in that way, it's more victim focused, which I appreciate. I like it. We talked about at the beginning of this, it doesn't glorify it at all. And I felt like that was really intentional in this film. Maybe because of the closeness he felt like a true empathy, for the victims and their families.
Well, yeah, because we see the young man who survives out at the lake and what that effect because he's
Mm-hmm.
walking with a cane, right?
Yeah.
And then the other young man who survives the car shooting, of course, he leaves because I'm sure he was like just who knows what that did to him, being a survivor of that. And it took him over 20 years to even like give a statement about it. Like
Yeah.
I think you're right. It does a really good job of like how it affected the victims and just the people around it. Like, you know, like the family that witnessed the, well, they didn't fully witness, but saw like the aftermath of the cab shooting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And uh even the frustration with Mark Ruffalo's character, because he wants to catch this guy, you know, he wants this to be over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just wild with all that attention, with all those resources, for them to not catch him is really strange. Like, it is a really interesting case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any in modern day that is quite like it, because I feel like most of our high profile serial killers that we get exposés on have been caught,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
We found them. They did something. They slipped up, or uh they you know, because a lot of these guys do like the attention and like getting like their names in the press and everything. So it's wild. And of course, you know, they didn't have the modern tools that we have now to solve crimes, but even still, human errors still exist, and it shows you sometimes how things slip through the cracks because of human error.
Yeah. Were there any other aspects? I know we talked about like the three scenes that you felt connected to or enjoyed the most about the movie, but is there, the cinematographer, for example, I don't know his name very well, but Harris Savitas, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
uh I know he's done quite a bit of work. I think that's one of I think he's done a lot, but I mean, the movie looks incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks, like I said, it looks like it was shot in the 70s. It looks like a Alan Pakula thriller. Like, I know that Fincher's a big fan of All the President's Men and Clute and The Parallax View, like those kind of, that era of filmmaking. Like, you know, maybe it's got a little bit of Chinatown in it too, you know.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that. And then you've got a score that kind of stands out, I think, too. David Shire is the composer. Again, kind of really enjoy this film, but don't know a ton of his work other than apparently he's unaccredited, but supposedly the composer for Short Circuit.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw also like conductor for Return to Oz, a couple other things, but yeah, it's interesting. I feel like isn't Fincher somebody who tends to use the same people over and over, right? But I guess this one is a little bit different.
Yeah, he does seem to work with a lot of the same people, because I know, like, I've never heard anything horrible about David Fincher, but I know that, like, he's a meticulous filmmaker. Like, I think he broke Jake Gyllenhaal making this movie because of, like, all the takes that he
Yeah.
requires sometimes. And, like, this was the first film he shot on digital too, and Robert Downey Jr. talks about how it was throwing him off at first, like seeing himself like on monitors and stuff, because, you know, it was
Wow.
different from shooting on film before. And Mark Ruffalo even talks about they were shooting a scene, and like Fincher gets up in the middle of like them filming, and he's walking towards Ruffalo, and Ruffalo's like, "Oh great, I'm going to get fired from this movie.
Oh.
Like, he hates my performance. Nothing's working." And he goes and talks to like an extra in the background, and it's like, "I need you to move a little bit to the left," or something like that. Like,
Wow.
that's how meticulous he is. So I know a lot of people would find that kind of annoying, but I've never heard like any horror stories like Kubrick level of him treating
Yeah.
anyone bad. Like, I know he made Jesse Eisenberg run upstairs like 100 plus times for some
Wow.
shot in The Social Network.
Yeah. You talked about this being kind of the pinnacle, but is it your favorite Fincher film?
It is my favorite Fincher film. Like, for a long time when I was younger, I probably would have said Fight Club or Seven. But like I said, the more I watch this, the more like how The Prestige is my favorite Nolan film because I feel like that encapsulates everything Nolan is as a filmmaker, even though that's not the popular choice of what people love because a lot of people love a lot of his other movies more. This one, though, I think you're right. There are a lot of people that advocate and say, no, this is his best movie. But yeah, it is my favorite movie for those reasons because I'm like, this is everything that he does, and
Yeah.
this is like it all coming together, and it's like him getting like a lot of gifted people to come in and just do like a couple of scenes,
Yeah.
like this movie's stacked with incredible gifted actors. We could spend like an hour going over each and every one of them, which is
Truly.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a unique and special film. I have to think about what my favorite Fincher film is. Certainly when I was younger, definitely was something like Fight Club. I remember seeing that in the theaters, buying a copy of it, watching it over and over again, watching every special feature. Yeah, and I loved Seven as well, which again, like we talked about, is a very different movie from this. Man, I'd really have to think about that. But he is one of my favorite directors.
Well, I mean, The Social Network is just another one of his films that continues to just really show how amazingly, like, that was like two amazingly gifted people coming together and
Mm-hmm.
working. Which I'm kind of sad Sorkin's directing the semi sequel to that because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like Sorkin needs somebody else to work with when he's like great writer, but I feel like he needs somebody else in there. Even if he's directing, I feel like there needs to be another
Mm.
voice in his work. I mean, Gone Girl really kind of rips for it to be kind of based off like this kind of trashy beach novel, sort of, but also
Yeah,
it's playing in that like true crime obsession.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Was there any other aspect of the film that we haven't kind of touched on yet that you wanted to explore?
I mean, I could go all day about just how incredibly crafted this film is. Like for a movie that's about 2 hours and 40 minutes, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not bored at all.
Yeah.
Even though there's probably people be like, "This is such a slow movie. Like nothing's happening." Like, because I mean, once we get past all the retellings of all the crimes, of course, we didn't talk about the kidnapping of the woman and her baby, which is
Oh, yeah.
so terrifying because that's anybody, especially a woman driving alone at night, that is definitely your fear to be stopped by a
Sure.
stranger and like they have nefarious plans.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Which is probably why she was still freaking out till that lady shows up. Because even though that truck driver was trying to be helpful, she's probably like not fully trusting him because
Yeah.
he was a man,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, it's from a historical perspective, 60s, 70s especially, that's when I think as a nation started to change our ideas about like, I mean, people used to hitchhike and it wasn't a big deal, and kids used to walk to school by themselves, and like there's a lot about our culture that changed during that time because of high profile crimes like this.
Well, yeah, this predates cable news, but this is around the point where baby boomers are becoming adults in society. So there is a little bit of that loss of innocence of what
Sure.
people thought was America, like even though this darkness has always existed, it's like people were becoming aware in the culture that like there is, you know, evil things happen. People do incredibly terrible things to people. And just because you're a good person doesn't mean you're safe from this.
Yeah. Cheery thought.
I know.
Yeah.
Uh, But I mean, I
Well,
think
yeah.
that's what made the case such a, and because it's like, because he's acting like a super villain in a, like he's
Mm-hmm.
acting like a Batman villain. Like this is something
Truly.
you would see in a comic strip of Batman or something like. Which I mean, the Matt Reeves Batman is very heavily influenced by
Oh,
David
absolutely.
Fincher. Like
Yeah.
he is playing with both Seven and Zodiac in that film.
Yeah, and I think it's really effective. I really liked that movie because of that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, yeah, especially with the Riddler. I mean, he basically is
Yeah.
the Zodiac killer. Um, well, Cody, I guess if we're kind of towards the end of our film discussion, then that brings me to my last couple of questions for you. I think you know what they're going to be. But number one, if you had to summarize, why this movie in particular? Why do you call it the pinnacle of what he does, and you said it's everything you like. But I guess to just summarize everything you like, what's everything you like about what he does?
Uh, you know, David Fincher probably is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I don't know if it's because maybe I have a little bit of meticulousness and obsessiveness in me. I don't think it's to the point of what David Fincher has, but I mean, we talked about it. I mean, I love investigative, like I love almost any investigative journalism film, like
Yeah,
so that's there. I love uh cop procedurals. I mean, I
me
don't like
too.
all the cop procedural shows, but I love just, people getting in there investigating things, trying to figure out. This is why I never minded doing research papers in college. That's the fun part. I get to go to the library and find things and look up facts and pull pieces together. So
It's a good point.
I think that's why I love this movie. It's just a little core part of my personality that's in here.
Got it. Okay. Well, at least it's that part. It's not the killer part.
No, 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 no,
um,
no.
just
I'd be
kidding.
one of those guys that like, oh no,
No, no,
no.
no.
It's
But
too
I
much work. It is too much work.
too much work. That's really
And
what stops you. But no, I
also
agree with you.
anxiety, and plus, I don't want. I try to be nice to people.
Yeah, same. But I resonate with the investigative part. I do like that part, the detective part. And I don't like a lot of the, I guess, cop shows as much because I feel like they always cut all that out.
They
They
do.
make it very fast and exciting. And I think it's like you said, it's not fast and exciting. It's investigative would be sitting in those libraries for a long time,
Well,
poring over newspapers,
this
things like that.
this is a very intellectual movie because not only is it like an investigative film, but it's there's people doing a lot of reading and writing. I mean, this case is pinpointing on handwriting, so they're talking to handwriting experts. We
Yes,
get the incredible Philip Baker Hall plays like the leading handwriting expert in this film.
100%. Um, if you had to pitch this movie to someone that's never seen it before, though, how would you describe it?
It's like, so I guess it depends on who I'm pitching it to, but let's just say I'm pitching it to someone who knows nothing about the Zodiac killer at all, or who David Fincher is. I'm like, do you like to listen to true crime podcasts or watch true crime documentaries? Because I know there's like a half a dozen on HBO Max and Netflix every week. It's like, this is kind of where those all come from. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to see like where that started, this is a movie about like a case that if the Zodiac killer existed like today or like a decade ago, they would have had a true crime podcast. There would have been like a 6-part mini series. There probably would have been Ryan Murphy probably would have done a drama about it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's a good pitch. I think also, if you do like mine hunters and you're like, where did that idea stem from? I think watch this film because I really think a lot of what he wasn't done. Basically, he's like, okay, got one under my belt. Now I'm going to do a whole show, and absolutely love that show. So I think it's a good follow up to this. Well, Cody, thank you so much for coming back on for doing this episode. Is there anything that you want to plug on your way out?
Well, if you want to listen to us kind of get Robert Graysmith level obsessive about Twin Peaks, you can watch us on my YouTube channel, Video Store Rejects, where Kevin, Polly, and Colin Smith and I talk about David Lynch's works, and we are like knee deep in what ultimately now is his last piece of work, Twin Peaks: The Return, which is open to multiple interpretations and discussions because David Lynch was very coy about not really saying what his work was about.
Mm.
Like, you tell me, what did you get out of it?
I kind of love that. Well, thank you again, Cody, for coming on. Hope to have you back soon.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Love being on here. Love chatting with you, Lisa. So thank you for having me so many times.
Absolutely.